Hello and welcome to the Great International Education and Schools Fair, and we're delighted to introduce you today to the Bridge School, who are going to present our fully online education. And here with me today are Julie Taylor and Chelsea Ekelsen, and also with me is Marianne Curphey, our analyst, and we're going to join together at the end to have a question and answer session. But first, if our panelists would like to switch off their microphones, we're going to hear this fascinating discussion between Julie Taylor, Chase Ekelsen and Nikki Hofman talking about the Bridge School.
Welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar today. Over the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about something that we are all very passionate about: digital education versus distance learning. My name is Chase Ekelsen, and I'm with Verano Learning Partners.
My name is Julie Taylor. I am the head of school for the Bridge School.
I'm Nikki Hofman. I'm with Strong Minds supporting Valor Academy leaders.
And to start out today, I think just jumping right in, it's important to note that there are three components to a good digital education. Number one, digital curriculum. Number two, a strong learning management system, or LMS. And three, a student information system. So as we go through today, most of our conversation will be around a digital curriculum and some with a learning management system, but just know that all three pieces are vital to a good digital education. And most of them are missing from distance learning. So let's jump right in. There are a lot of good educators out there that are doing a lot of really good, hard, quality work, but they're starting at a disadvantage. They're really starting at the bottom of the mountain that they have to climb just to get to a level playing field to move forward. So, Julie, talk to us a little bit about the fact that a good digital education can't necessarily be thrown together in a couple of weeks. What does that look like then?
So we've been in online education, each of us, for about 20 years independently, and we know that it takes a lot of time to really create a strong online school presence. And a lot of schools in the past year have really been thrown into distance learning, and they've been trying to, in various levels of success, try to create what they've been doing in their bricks and mortar school and translate that into an online environment. And I think we know from our past couple of decades in online education that it's not something that you can do overnight.
At the base level, the teachers have to have a curriculum that they implement with the students. I think it's unfair when teachers are asked just to pull a bunch of materials together that they've traditionally been able to print and use as they need to in their physical classroom. But basically, what we've seen teachers have to do, and even some of my friends who are teachers, they've had to take the online or the physical aspect and try to smash it online. And it really isn't fair to them, number one. And number two, it takes away from student learning. Because instead of a teacher preparing their time and taking a look at a type of digital curriculum that they can think of, okay, I'm going to use this, and I see we're teaching this standard here, and I know this is what traditionally works well, they're combing through websites and free resources, trying to put something together to post to their students that would do the same thing. So we're not really letting our teachers shine when we put it all on them to figure out how to deliver content to students online.
Couldn't agree more. They're really starting at a disadvantage because they've got the whole mountain to climb before they can even start with what they signed up to do.
Absolutely.
So, Julie, tell us some other things that a good digital education starts with.
Well, first, I think it needs to be built on some strong standards, some strong educational standards, and it needs to incorporate how students learn and really build upon foundational pieces of knowledge and allow students to kind of go forward or backwards based on the standards. Do they need a little bit more foundation? Do they need some remediation? Or do they need some more comprehensive activities? Are they looking for those real world connections? And then the other big piece that I find is that a strong digital curriculum is going to give the teachers data. It's going to be able to give them real time information on how their students are doing in their courses. It's going to allow them to be able to help prepare the teaching and understand what the students actually need more support in.
And I couldn't agree with you more, because when you have a good digital curriculum that allows the teacher to drive the student's education, it also allows the student to work ahead when they need to work ahead, or spend some more time in concepts that they need to spend more time in. And literally the teachers have all of the data at their fingertips, so they can very easily see who did well on the assignment and who did not do well, and then the teacher can then pull those students aside into a small group setting instead of making the entire class revisit the same 5 problems again if needed.
Love that. How important it is that to stress the idea that it's not just data, it's not just numbers that we're able to gather with a good digital curriculum, but we're actually able to take the information and turn it into something that's actionable to help students.
Absolutely.
And so many times you just don't get that level of information from a brick and mortar traditional curriculum. So it's really exciting to have access to help students even further.
Well, and the nice thing for teachers too is that with the digital curriculum, a lot of the assignments are graded. So teachers don't have to spend their time going through making sure everybody marked A for number 2 or B for number 3. It's right there for the teachers to see. So that teachers can spend the time that they do spend grading with more in-depth projects that actually don't just need a quick once-over.
Exactly. The last piece I think that's important to note is that a good digital education is not black and white text, maybe some form of a PDF. That's not what a good digital education is. A good curriculum will include things like multimedia. It'll include video. It will include interactive activities. One of the exciting things that we have instituted at the Bridge School is some of the project-based learning, and as we continue to build this out, talk to us about project-based learning and social-emotional support.
Right. Well, let me even back up a step further, Chase. So a lot of times when schools that have been typically a brick and mortar type of school, or even sometimes when other schools are just trying to produce PDFs, they tend to get very text heavy in their content. And students are expected to just sit there and read and read and read, and there's not a lot of graphics, there's not a lot of things that break it up for students. So the Strong Mind curriculum that the Bridge School uses does a great job of breaking up the learning. They read a little bit, and then they have a video that they can watch that demonstrates the standard or what they're learning. And then there's some really cool interactive activities that allow them to practice that skill. So it does a fantastic job of breaking that up for the student and allowing for checkpoints to gauge whether or not the students have mastered that standard. So I think that's the first piece, right? And then also, like Chase said, building in some of those gamification pieces within the curriculum so that students are not just getting bored reading text after paragraph. We do have a time and a place for that with our novels and different pieces of the curriculum, but it doesn't have to be 5 hours a day of just reading what they need to be learning. As far as the social emotional piece of it, Strong Mind has built out a new curriculum that we offer, and it's really dealing with the social emotional aspects of student learning. Our poor kiddos these days are dealing with so many tough things, and we want to give them the skills to be able to manage what life throws at them. And so these little bite-sized lessons talk about how to interact with another student on social media, how to handle conflict with a parent. And there's all kinds of different topics that our teachers can choose from to deliver to the students that really help them understand cognitively some of the things that they're going through and how to respond to those things.
Well, and another thing that I like about the Strong-Minded curriculum, it allows students to search on topics themselves. So it's not just dependent upon what the teacher thinks they need at the time. The student can be an advocate for themselves, which is really important when you're talking about a good digital learning experience for students. Is also part of our job is helping teach the students how to advocate and think for themselves, which we want all of our students to be great thinkers.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about a lot of things that a good digital education is. Let's transition for a second and talk about what a good digital education is not. First and foremost, a great digital curriculum does not replace the teacher. What does it do?
Absolutely, you're right. Teachers are so important, and the world needs them in the heart that they have for kids. A good digital curriculum allows the teacher to not only provide the student the standards that they need, guide their learning, but it also allows the teacher to hone in on the relational aspect that they have with the student. So good distance learning or good digital education is allowing our teachers to focus on being teachers and getting to know their students. What a good digital educational experience is not is simply just sending kids worksheets to complete via email and then asking them to submit them. Or also putting the content delivery only on the parent. Parents are busy. They rely on educators to guide their students through learning. Of course, parents should be a part of the learning community and the experience because it takes a village to raise a child, but they should not be the main deliverer of that content.
But my big hairy opinion is that students do not need to be sitting in front of a Zoom camera for 5 hours a day to be counted as educational hours. There's so many different activities that can be done other than just sitting in front of a Zoom camera.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Julie, because even my own students, my poor kids, they're in front of the camera, or they were for 6 hours a day. That's a long time for kids. It's not the greatest experience for them. We want them to be out, we want them to be learning, we want them to be seeking, we want them to do things that are hands-on, we want them to be questioning and asking questions, interacting with one another.
A great point. A good education includes things like offline assignments. So there should be things that students are doing that are not behind a computer. There should be hands-on project-based learning pieces built into the day and the week and the month to make sure that kids are learning beyond just the book smarts, right? They get that kinesthetic opportunity to put fingers on whatever the material is. I think of maybe some of the science classes. They've got to get fingers in and they've got to get their hands dirty. And then we have to, as we already previously mentioned, take care of social emotional needs outside of just, or how are you today, right? It's so much more than that. And it is important that as things continue to move digitally, we don't lose that opportunity to connect with students and to get students to connect with each other. There are a few other things that a digital education is not, and it is not a replacement of a campus. A lot of times people think I either have a brick and mortar campus or I have a online campus. And that's just not the case. Nikki, you have the perfect example of this at Valor, Arizona, another partner school of Verano, that is hybrid. So part of the day is in person and part of the day is online. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like and how you institute a good digital education in a brick and mortar space.
Sure. So it takes an entire team, Chase and Julie, as you guys know. It's a really unique opportunity for students because one of the really neat things about digital curriculum is students have access to it whether they're in the building or whether they're at home. So they always have access to the content. So the way it works is that the students have all of their lessons delivered to them within the learning management system. We utilize the Strongmind curriculum. When they're on site, they spend time with teachers practicing the things that they traditionally need more time and more guidance in. We have a hybrid site. We focus on station rotations. So what that looks like is the students complete their assignments the day before, a couple days before, and then when they're with the teacher is really able to hone in on what they need more practice in. And then the teachers have different stations set up. So they'll have like a teacher seminar station where a small group of students works with the teachers directly, and then they'll have other stations where the students practice skills. It may be moving on beyond where they're currently at, or maybe spending some more time with a concept they just need some more practice in, and working together.
That's fantastic. So it is possible to institute a digital education within a brick and mortar location. The next question, I think then, Julie, becomes, does it have to take over the school, or can it be a program and a separate offering of the school?
You know what? There's so many different ways to be successful in this, and I will tell you that one style does not fit every kind of student, right? There's so many different types and needs of students that are out there, and to be able to offer a variety of delivery models to meet the needs of your students is so important. So the Bridge School is a fully online virtual school. However, we do have pockets where we have groups of students that do come into a location, and so that's a fantastic opportunity for those students who do want some face-to-face time. So having those types of strong offerings to meet the different needs of the students is so critical.
There are benefits to having a digital education in a brick and mortar setting, but we have one final story that I want Nikki to tell, because 2020 happened and the whole world fell apart. Well, the whole world minus Valor Preparatory Academy of Arizona. So tell us your story.
The advantage that we had at Valor Preparatory Academy of Arizona is that we were already using the digital curriculum from StrongMind with our students. And one of the great things about digital curriculum is the curriculum you have on site when the kids are at school is the exact same curriculum that they access from home. So when COVID-19 hit last spring, and lots of schools were scrambling, holding emergency board meetings, we didn't have to do that. There was one change for our students, and that was going from meeting in a building to actually meeting in a Zoom classroom. But they utilized the same curriculum. We didn't have to have any emergency board meetings because the students really just picked up on Monday where they left off on the prior Friday.
One of the things I would love to hear from you, Chase, is I love that Verano Learning Partners, a nonprofit, is able to offer all of these different partnerships. And for me, it's a fully online school. For Valor Prep of Arizona, it is a hybrid format. Can you tell us a little bit about how your nonprofit serves different educational partners?
The great thing about Verano is that we don't come in with a one-size-fits-all solution. Because just like every student can learn, they may not all learn the same way. Every single school doesn't need to look exactly the same. And if we're being honest, across the United States at least, all the schools look pretty much exactly the same, and they serve that student that's somewhere near the middle. But Verano Learning Partners wants to come in and partner for exactly what the school needs. Not more, not less. So what is the problem that you're experiencing? And then how can we help you solve that? So some of our school partnerships are full-time online, the Bridge School. Some are truly blended, where the students are on the campus from 8 a.m. to noon. And then they work remotely. Some of the students get jobs or internships. They have performances or sports or whatever it might be in the afternoons, and there's some flexibility there. And then we have another school partnership in Ohio. And one of the things that was most important to those families was the safety of their students. So we built a blended site where they're inside a building all day, but they still get access to the great digital curriculum and some of the fun blended components that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. We're just excited to be able to partner in whatever the format would be. A good education for students, a good experience for teachers and staff, and something that the parents are really happy about. Just providing a great digital education from day number one. A digital education is no longer the school of tomorrow, it's the school of today. And in instituting the three components that we talked about, digital curriculum, a learning management system, and a student information system, need to be core foundational principles that every school starts with. And as you can see, we're pretty excited about this topic. Again, thank you so much for joining our webinar. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Well, that was really fascinating and explained a lot. So we're delighted to welcome you back, and we have here today Julie and Chase, who are going to join Marianne and tease out really why global mobility in the context of that, schools and parents and employers and relocation professionals can get excited about it.
Well, thank you, Chase and Julie, for that fascinating video. And what really struck me was how the model can be used for whatever is needed in whatever context. So you can have an online, purely online, like the Bridge, or you can have a hybrid, or you can create a school that really helps to meet the needs of the community and the students and the parents. So really fascinating kind of glimpse into what's going on now and what we might have in the future. So you mentioned in the webinar that online schools were able to capture more academic and assessment data. And I just wondered if you could give a specific example of what that looks like and how you can use that to drive future student attainment.
Absolutely. So I know that a lot of times parents and students, they get sick of the assessments, right? Like it's a data overload, it's testing overload. But we really want to use meaningful data to really help drive student learning. So within our online platform, having that digital education allows for quick checkpoints. So students can, we can put gateways on the quizzes so that if they don't pass a quiz, they're not going to move on to the next chapter or content until they go back and review or touch base with the teacher and really understand what they have learned in that unit before going on to the next unit. And then teachers can look at a test, a unit test, and they can easily see which students are really struggling, and we can kind of group them into, below average on the test scores, average, and advanced, so that the students who are really struggling can go 2 or 3 steps backwards and build those foundational pieces and then build up to where they need to be based on their grade level standards. So it's really a great tool for teachers. And like Chase said in the video, our curriculum doesn't replace our teachers. It just helps give them more tools.
So it sounds more like a kind of bespoke program for the students. So those students who are struggling, you can take them into a kind of breakout room, whether that be physical or online, and help to support them. And I guess that, Chase, the point that Nikki made in the video as well was that it also frees up the teacher. They don't have to sit there and do all the marking that perhaps teachers traditionally did. They've got the data instantly, and that's a really useful tool for them as well.
You're exactly right. Think back 10 years ago, the teacher is in their living room or in their classroom, and they've just got papers spread out all over the floor. They've got their red pen handy, and they kind of are trying to figure out, a lot of kids missed question 2, and maybe some of them missed question 7. The difference is with a digital infrastructure, as soon as the computer finishes grading the bubbled in assessment, it pops out from the teacher perspective. Hey, tomorrow when you start your session, review question 2 and question 7, because the majority of the students miss those. And so the teachers aren't spending as much time digging in on 20 pages across their floor. They have time to now prepare for a quick review. And then if the same students are missing it again, the output to the teacher is, these 7 kids, they need to have a quick remediation session after the class is over. Pull them back and talk through question 2 again. So it's really, really helpful from a student performance perspective. We're making sure that they master the content, not just that they do the assignment. And there's a huge difference there.
Okay, so that sounds immensely useful to a teacher and really helping to use their time more effectively as well. What about in terms of a teacher's professional development? How can that data and the administrative system help a teacher develop?
Absolutely. So, there has been a lot of growth this year in educators across the globe. And it's almost like every teacher is starting from ground zero when they have moved from a traditional bricks and mortar classroom, and now they're being launched into this digital format or this online emergency learning. And so a lot of the professional development this year is really understanding how to connect and engage students digitally and how you can build relationships even though you might not be able to meet in person. So we talk a lot about that and how we can really help the students feel like they have a connection with their teachers and other students. But as far as the data is concerned, it allows us as administrators to see where teachers might need more training on.
they should be content area experts, right? If they're teaching that subject, they should be content area subject matter experts. So we don't necessarily need to dive into the actual content, but more of the delivery methods and how are they breaking down that curriculum for the students, and really kind of doing a dive with the individual teacher on their specific students, and talking one-on-one with the teacher about the students that they have and what they're doing to help the students succeed.
So that sounds really interesting. So that's about the professional development of the teacher, kind of coaching the teacher, helping them to understand how to deliver the digital format effectively. But it also sounds like it's a way of trying to understand that the relationship with each student is different and it's unique, and how a teacher manages that remotely as well as perhaps in a physical sense if it's a hybrid model. Chase, do you have any sort of point on that you'd like to make?
Yes, I would. I will say, and Julie hates it when I do this, but Julie actually is the premier teacher trainer. We stole her from one of the biggest education companies in the United States, and she was training teachers not just from one state or two, the entire United States, teaching hundreds and hundreds of teachers how to do this effectively in an online model. And it's so much more than just making sure that they're content experts, like Julie mentioned, but understanding how to get the point across to students. And if the way that you're delivering it today isn't working, let us help you figure out how do we make this effective. But then beyond that, there's a whole new world of being an effective teacher with the relationship piece. And you're not going to be able to see the kids every day and have those hallway conversations when you're in an online format. And so Julie really digs in with a lot of our teachers, explaining, here's how you create relationships online. And that's such a vital part. It's not just log in, get your instruction, and log out. We have to make sure, especially in 2020, that we're serving these students from an appropriate social, emotional perspective. We focused so much this year on physical safety, and we should, but we have completely thrown out the window mental health. And we have to make sure that we're serving these students appropriately from that perspective as well.
So that sounds great that you're prioritizing the relationships, because digital learning can sometimes seem a bit kind of isolated and lonely, can it, if it's not done well? So Nikki mentioned how digital students can help to showcase the benefits of this kind of either purely online or hybrid model. And I wondered, how do you ensure that students are prepared for life after they leave school and when they graduate?
Yeah, one of the great things about our program is that we really encourage students to set their own schedule and be owners of their learning. They really have to have the ownership of making sure that they are engaging and setting aside time for learning. And a lot of our students are student athletes who have to balance almost a full-time athletic career and full-time schooling. And so they are learning those life skills and how to advance beyond high school. Additionally, we offer honors and AP level courses that get students prepared for university after high school.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good point, that it might be students who can't actually physically be in school in the hours that perhaps traditionally students would be. How do you foster then that kind of classroom feel for the students to try and replicate some of the advantages of being in a group where there's a group dynamic going on?
That's one of the benefits, I think, of the Bridge School. Even though it's a full-time online school, we from a Verano perspective, and we're the education nonprofit that kind of is over the Bridge School, we believe so strongly in not losing the human element, even though it's a digital component. And we love creating partnerships when we get enough students in a local area. And we have some really great partnerships. A major ballet company in the United States has partnered with us, and all of the ballerinas join with the Bridge School and use the curriculum, but then they get that in-person time in the state of Texas. And then we have a basketball league in Ireland that we've partnered with, and we have enough students in Honduras that have partnered together, and they all live in close proximity. And there's a hybrid site that we've launched there with them. So not losing the human element, whether it's in a digital format or what we like to do, maybe not so much in 2020, but in normal times, it's finding enough students that we can then bring them in and do some of the fun hands-on experiences while they're on site with us.
It feels to me that back in maybe February or March, if we'd been having a discussion about online school, it might have felt something that was very futuristic and modern. And now it's so absolutely embedded in our culture in every country around the world. I just wondered, from your point of view, what changes you've seen over the last 6 or 9 months about how people view digital and online education and how COVID has changed that.
I'll jump in here. I think that, I started in online education 19 years ago, and I had moved from a typical district brick and mortar school. And back then, online education was in its infancy. Like, my students were mailing me work samples through the U.S. Postal Service. So it was really a very challenging time to be in the online education world. We didn't have these web conferences back then. And not everyone had access to a scanner. There weren't, the phone didn't take as great of pictures to quickly take a snapshot of a problem and email it to the teacher. So now we have all of these tools. We have a great infrastructure. And I think where previously, but maybe before COVID, there was a stigma attached to online learning that maybe students weren't getting the same quality education as their bricks and mortar school counterparts. And I think that COVID has really forced everybody to look at online learning in a different way and experience it. So I think that over the course of the last 9 months, most of the world has experienced some sort of distance learning. And whereas many of the schools across the globe right now are still trying to figure it out, we've been here for 2 decades now, and we've kind of laid that groundwork. And so we know what works and what doesn't work, and what are the important things, and how to really allow students to have that same level of success that they would get in a bricks and mortar school.
So Chase, if there are international school leaders who want to get in touch with you and find out more, how can they start the discussion with you?
Yeah, the simplest way is just to email us. And I know it's really a tough one. My email is chase@verano.org. chase@verano.org. You can also check out our website, verano.org. And we've got a lot of testimonials and some of the other school partnerships that we have listed there.
So what's really interesting to me is you were talking just a few minutes ago about the ballerinas and the basketball players, and how people in elite sport and perhaps theatre or film industry can take advantage of this. But I guess, Fiona, there's actually huge opportunities here for global mobility employers who are trying to support families to retain top talent and to engage the family, so that the digital school is a way of continuing or ensuring continuity for families at perhaps difficult times.
Yes, I think it absolutely ticks a lot of boxes here, because fairly recently, or over the last year or so, employers were getting more and more into the fact that they have to engage with the employees, the talents they're moving, and not just the employee but the whole family. And this was a very sort of proactive thing. And then when along came COVID, things were made so much more difficult. I mean, people everywhere were experiencing having to go online more. We can come back in a minute. I was going to ask you a question: what happens when you have little people grabbing your ankles when they're trying to work, and how you deal with that? But back to the issue. I mean, I think in the global mobility context, there are so many occasions when, before COVID even, companies were having to move people out of in different periods, so not necessarily neatly at the start of an academic year or even the start of a new term, but whenever they were needing to get that person, driven by the business need to go wherever. And then there's been increasingly reluctant for partners and spouses to up sticks and go with them. And a lot of parents are, particularly the global ones, are really aspirational about the achievements of their children. And they think, well, we've been here, we're just getting at a critical grade stage or whatever, we just don't want to go. What are you going to do? So I think for all those circumstances, despite COVID, there's a real opportunity to say there is another alternative. So getting that message out to as many employers as possible when they're planning international assignments, that's really important. But also this myriad of support people there are across immigration, tax, all sorts of other areas, the destination service providers, the relocation management companies, all those sorts of people that touch on the international experience and or business travel movers can just interject here and say, there is a solution. We can offer this person a potential short-term assignment and they can carry on with the education and be hopping backwards and forwards to different projects around the world.
So you're saying that there's trigger points that might be repatriation or might be a new assignment or might be the difficulty of persuading a family that they have to move partway through a school year, or perhaps in a grading year when they're coming up to 18 or 16. You're saying that there might be an opportunity there for a digital or a hybrid model which would support families that are mobile.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, a lot of them have been experiencing schools having to use anyway blended learning, hybrid learning anyway, because of the situation, and understand that. And there's also the circumstance which is growing when families who have been in a location for a while are then being transferred over to being a localized employee, and they are no longer within the package that's negotiated, may have the same sort of school support that they had. So again, that's an area where it might be extremely useful. And of course, children in a family have different education requirements. So, it may be that there is a traditional bricks and mortar school for two, but the third one would be really better suited to online.
So Chase and Julie, Fiona just picked up on a point there, which I think is really interesting about if you're all working at home, which we all are at the moment, how do you manage that blend between work and home? How do you stop the kids rushing in when you're trying to do a Zoom call with the boss or with a potential partner? Are there times when you've got anecdotes of when that's happened and how that's overcome, or do you have a system in place where you can kind of protect parents from that sort of thing happening?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things here. So first of all, when we are setting up parents and teachers for that matter for success, we really try to, especially teachers, we go through some really a week-long training at the beginning of the school year, really helping them to understand how to work from home successfully. How you can balance your home duties with your work duties and not feel like you are working 15 hours a day. And that's a common theme that people who are just coming into the working at home arena feel. And so one of the things that we find is really beneficial is to set aside chunks of your day that you will work on email for this 20 minutes. And then the next time you're going to go and check in on your children who are doing school from home and have a plan at the beginning of the week on, what you're going to be working on each day so that it's laid out. Having that calendar and having that schedule really helps to keep you on track. And it takes you away fewer times. I mean, those immediate distractions are going to happen, but if you have a plan of attack, it definitely helps schedule your days and your weeks. But if I could, I would like to address something that Fiona said that really struck me when she's talking about the mobile families. And we know that with the Bridge School that we are not the answer for every mobile family, but we do have open enrollment so that families who are getting those middle of the semester moves across the globe don't have to feel like their school is being completely interrupted. And you don't have to follow a set American calendar schedule. So we have that ongoing open enrollment that students can enroll at any point in the school year. And then additionally, we know that there is a subgroup of those mobile families where just one member of the family goes out on a short-term assignment and comes back, those fly in and fly out families. And we allow our students to have like a 2 to 3 week break in the middle of their semester if they need to, for when their family unit is all together, they can spend that quality family time without having to worry about where they are going to fit in their schooling.
Okay, so that sounds brilliant. That sounds really supportive for parents and for students, and actually you're preparing the parent for the digital education as well as the child. Chase, was there anything that you wanted to add as a kind of addition for that?
Yes, again, it comes down to that humanity piece. Like, we have to maintain the family connection, and we want to provide the opportunity. The other piece that I'll add on to what Fiona was saying is what we're hearing from a lot of global mobility professionals is, as this whole world is changing and how people are expatriated and repatriated, and instead of being on assignment, they're being localized, we're finding that the education assistance benefit is one of the first things to go. And so one of the benefits that the Bridge School offers is that instead of, the $25,000 cost of having the in-person experience in the huge buildings and they're great, they have a really a good place for a lot of families. But when this happens and the education benefit is gone, the Bridge School can maintain those families at a lower price point that they could still afford, even without that benefit in place. So it's definitely something for these families to consider, and the relocation experts to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Ask about culture and language support then, Julie. Is that part of the program when you're combining different nationalities and cultures?
So our curriculum is taught all in English. However, we do have foreign language courses available. So we do offer foreign language throughout high school. However, all of our curriculum is taught in English, and students earn a U.S. diploma. Now, we have partnered with other schools. Chase had mentioned one of our partner schools in Honduras. Students who attend our school that live in Honduras and have this partnership are able to obtain both a Honduras diploma and a U.S. diploma. So we do have some opportunities where students can obtain dual diplomas.
Thank you. So Fiona, just to wrap up, it sounds as though not only is this the future of education, but it's already here and it's happening and it's working really well for students and parents and teachers. And then you've got some more exciting educational webinars coming up later this week, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yes, we'll be revisiting many times, I think, the online experience and blended and hybrid, and just how schools have risen tremendously to the challenges of the COVID situation, but we're already embarking on that. So we have some very interesting sort of country and regional focuses coming up this week, with an Asia one and also Middle East, Europe and Africa. So they'll be fascinating. And then an old chestnut, Julian, I don't know if this comes up with your schools, is single sex versus co-education. And so, how do you integrate everybody and make sure everybody's happy? So that might be something that you'd want to listen into. And then next week we have more about different curriculums. So I'm imagining that you're probably going to looking to be bringing in some other curriculums as well as the American system. Might that be the case?
Dual credit is definitely where we're going, and dual diploma, I think, is going to be where the sweet spot is to support families both internationally, and then they still are provided with that Cognia accredited, NCAA eligible American education as well. You're exactly right.
Yes. And then another area that we've been covering a lot is about the settling of families and transition care. So I don't know, Julie, you've got some sort of comments about the sort of pastoral care your teachers offer when you're saying hello and goodbye to students, and how you manage that all online.
Absolutely. I think that there's so many different ways that a teacher can really feel connected with their students, and their students can feel connected with their teachers. I actually had a parent of a 10th grade student just the other week call me and tell me that she couldn't even understand how her son was feeling so connected with his teachers, even more so than when he was in an actual bricks and mortar school. And it really comes down to that intentional relationship and really asking, how are you doing? And asking, making sure that the students know that you care, and then you can get into the learning piece of it. But especially in these times when people are feeling so isolated, it's so important to have that real, authentic connection.
Brilliant. Great. Well, that's been fascinating. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's brought our session to the end. It's been absolutely fascinating having you here, and I'm sure, as Marianne said, this is just going to be the start. So just a few slides now so that people can connect with our speakers today and find out more about the Bridge School. So thank you very much to Chase for all his insights, and of course to Julie, who is the head of the Bridge School, and Nikki Hofman, often also offering a very different but similar experience. And thank you again. These are some of the webinars that we have on course in the next few days until the end of November, and do please watch the replays. And this is where we traditionally came from, good old print, but we've got digital magazines, and all our material is online. So do come and share that. And there's lots of extra content throughout the fair period in November, including our Guide to International Education and Schools. So thank you very much once again to the
Thank you, Fiona.
And we hope to connect with you and hear more about developments at the Bridge School and other online school ventures. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.